This is Culture Story B, again by Roz Walmering, a Peace Corps volunteer. It was Tino and Mando who came and told us that a skinny, sickly white woman had jumped off a bicycle, run into our classroom, and tried to teach them English that morning. Tino and Mando weren't even in our class. They were just sitting there waiting to use the soccer field when she rushed in like the rains. They weren't sure what to say because she looked so strange. Her hair was all falling down, and she wore a dress that looked like an old faded bed covering that one might have bought from a Mauritanian vendor in the used clothing market. We all walked over to Nito's house and found a few more of our classmates sitting out back drinking frothy tea. We decided, even though school hadn't really started yet, that we'd go the next day to see what this new American teacher looked like. Tino and Mando assured us that she was as ugly as a newly hatched, greedy eyed vulture. We knew that practically no one would be at school yet. Most students were still on the farms finishing the harvest, and others were still trying to register and pay their fees. The ministry had changed the admission rules again. All registrations completed at the end of last year were now declared invalid, and so we had to wait in line, get new photographs, show our papers, and pay fees all over again. Either that, or pay some official to put our names on the list, which actually was much easier than completing the registration process. We listened to the radio broadcast by the minister at night, reminding parents of school, and smiled. Everybody knew he sent his children, for good reasons, to the private, elite Portuguese school. Teachers at the public schools never showed up until the third week. Didn't she know that? As it turned out, we agreed to enter the classroom just when everyone else did. We always say, cross the river in a crowd and the crocodile won't eat you. From that first day, she never demanded our respect. She didn't seem to care if we wore our school jackets or not. She didn't write the teaching summary on the board like our other teachers, and she was always in the classroom before the bell rang. That meant we could never stand up and honor her entrance. She should have known not to enter until after the bell rang, and she never took roll call first, as she should have, and so we continued chatting and doing our homework. Of course, by this time, our other students had heard about our white woman teacher and were coming by to look at her and watch our class. We couldn't resist joining in the fun. At times, we believed she was serious. For example, when she told the students outside class to leave. But where were they supposed to go? The area in front of her classroom was the designated student recreation area. Instead of ignoring them and us, she berated them with gestures and scolded us in Portuguese. Her Portuguese wasn't bad, but it sounded so amusing when she said spoiled brats. You just had to laugh. We laughed even harder every time she said Peace Corps, because in our Crioulo language, Peace Corps sounds like body of fish. We called her the fish body teacher after that. Classes were interesting because they were so confusing. She kept switching her methods, and we were never sure what to expect next. For a while, she insisted that the mind equips itself, and a teacher must not interfere in the process. She called it the silent way. After the silent way came total physical response. We gave actions to everything and pretended to be desks, pencils, and other classroom articles. We contorted our bodies into their defining characteristics and played, What am I? Then we role-played imaginary dialogues between, for example, two books fighting to get into a book bag at the same time. One day she taught us the song In the Jungle. We love that song and still sing it after school when we walk home. No, you couldn't really call her a consistent person, but we all have our little ways. Even so, a cracked calabash can still be mended. Obviously, she cared about us because she worked so hard to prepare for class. Most of our teachers were so busy at home or working a second or third job, they often missed class. When they did show up, they never prepared anything. It's true that we've already learned more English this quarter than we learned all last year. We always wanted to do more activities and play new games, but she seemed to think we needed to write. Because we didn't have books, she kept demanding that we copy information down on paper. But Guineans are oral people. We learn by talking. We make discoveries by sharing our experiences, and we help others by listening and contributing to conversations. Our history is a collective memory, and we are continually passing our knowledge on to others in our speech. She wanted us to raise our hands one by one and then talk individually. That to us seemed artificial and disruptive to the storytelling flow of human conversation. Only wolves howl individually. She confused us even more by saying pointless things with vigor. Wake up! Discover yourselves! Or asking questions that had no obvious answers. Why are you here? Or what are you going to do? Then she'd wait with such an intent expression on her face that we'd say almost anything to try to please her. We always enjoyed her facial expressions because they foretold what was soon to follow in speech. Anger, joy, disappointment, praise, or contentment. She really should have learned by then how to hide and disguise her reactions in order to suit her goals more effectively. But she didn't seem to care. In some ways, she was just like a child. We just didn't understand why it was our thinking that needed to change and never hers. She wore a bad eye charm around her neck, so we thought she believed in superstition. But when we asked her, she said she wore it not because she believed in superstition, but to show respect and affirmation for our culture. We asked her if that was why foreigners always wanted to buy our ritual masks and initiation staffs, but she didn't respond. She told us we didn't need World Bank handouts and International Monetary Fund debts. What we needed, she said, was to learn how to grow fish. Was she crazy? We need computers, not fish. Volanta women always know where to find fish. Teacher, we told her, you will come and go, but we stay here. How could she understand our culture? She had only seen the rains fall once. After a while, the novelty wore off, and we got tired of even a white woman's ways. It's hard, waking up at daybreak, doing morning chores, and then going to school for 5 hours without eating breakfast. Her class was during the last hour, and we were as hungry as feral street cats by that time. Some of us lived far from school, and if our step uncle or older cousin brother told us to go to the market before school, we had no choice. We were forced to run to her class with only a belly full of worms because we knew she wouldn't listen to our misfortunes even if we arrived 2 minutes late. It's true, in America, time is money, but here we don't respect time. Time is just now, nothing more. It wasn't only that we had responsibilities at home that came before school. Sometimes we were sick. If we had malaria, we'd put our heads down and sleep. And if we had runny belly, we'd just run out of the class when the cramping started. The dry season was so hot we faded away like morning songbirds. One day she yelled at us. We admit we weren't cooperating. But people are like that. We forgive each other and just go on. That's life, we'd tell her. A log, as long as it stays in the water, will never become a crocodile. Many things we just accepted as natural and impervious to change, but she considered such an attitude fatalistic. Finally, she called the school disciplinarian on us. She should have done that much earlier, in our opinion. We played our roles by allowing him to throw out a few students because we all knew they'd be back as soon as he got some cashew wine money from them. Anyway, that's the right of elders in our culture, and we're taught in the Bush school to abide by the established hierarchical roles. We didn't understand why she apologized after he left, and we couldn't believe it when she undermined his authority by apologizing for his poisonous pedagogy, as she called it. Like a Guinea woman, she certainly had courage. Today she did something different again. She came in and wrote a dialogue on the board. She asked questions about the dialogue that made us disagree. We had a lively discussion in English and then got into our groups and began designing some resolutions for the problem presented in the dialogue. We always say, when the ants unite their mouths, they can carry an elephant. We know she'll stay, too. We saw it in her eyes.